Well, welcome everybody. You should have in front of you the title slide, Discover the Hidden Practice Within Your Practice, sponsored by Demandforce. And I want to thank them for their support over the years and the dedication to the dental industry. Demandforce is an amazing organization, and as you know, they're keeping us all connected in a changing world. In that world, your patients expect seamless mobile and social communication. And I love these statistics. 48% of customers would prefer texting as the main method of customer service. Gosh, I can remember when we used to write hand notes. 88% of customers read reviews to determine the quality of your practice. And 88% of the customers trust online reviews as much as personal recommendations, even from their parents. It's pretty amazing. And what Demandforce does is attract new patients. They've got strategies for you to do that, keeping patients coming back, keeping you connected, and it saves you countless hours of times. So make life easier and generate more income with the robust marketing solution that they provide, and have a free 1-hour consultation with their team to make sure you're getting the most from your Demandforce relationship. There I am years and years ago. I think that picture was taken 34 years ago. I'm and seated there on the right next to my father, Harry, and my brother is up on the top left, standing. I was in public accounting with our CPA firm back from 78 to 92. I just had a conversation this morning with the gentleman in the middle there. His name's Greg. He's my CPA to this day, and we were talking, of course, about the taxes that are due. I started dental consulting and strategic planning back in 1986 with some clients in Sacramento, California, where I'm from and still live. And today we have clients in every state and every province that we have served or are serving. We've conducted over 21,000 planning conferences with doctors, worked with over 6,000 practices, from startup doctors from scratch all the way to large multiple location, multi-specialty groups all over the country. And we've had a phenomenal relationship with Henry Schein Dental since 2001. You know, our mission at Strain is to equip and empower dental professionals to increase their performance, innovation, and engagement in every aspect of your lives. And the spirit of every organization is created from the top, doctor. It's not where you can point the way. You've got to lead the way. And when you are leading the way, you're going to have a tremendous opportunity to align yourself with people who have integrity, and that's the entire team of consultants and other professionals of Strain Consulting, for which I'm so grateful. You know, you can build a practice with integrity. Love practicing dentistry when you define your vision. If we're going to work on strategies to discover the practice within the practice, and that was my first seminar back in 1987 when I was asked by the Sacramento District Dental Society to give a seminar at their annual midwinter convention. I didn't have a title, right? And I just kept looking at all these hundreds of practices back then that had so many patients of record. And, you know, having worked with over 6,000 practice owners, in fewer than 2% of the time have we ever had to say, you need to go find new patients outside of your practice. There's plenty sitting within the practice today. So what is your vision? And that ties into your mission, and it's based on your values. Then we have to think about what are the strategies you're going to implement. Reappointment, reactivation, financial arrangements, treatment planning, missed appointments, confirmation, internal marketing. These are all strategies, and you're going to have goals for each one of these that we'll talk about today. Then lead with your heart, because when you've developed strategies that are in alignment with your vision and your mission, it's nothing but the love of your heart. We call it the culture of yes at Strain. Yes is an acronym for you, ethos, and the systems we need to follow and stay committed to the strategy. And this isn't something that it's a one-week campaign, a one-month campaign. You're not going to get one pearl from this seminar and it's going to make sense in 6 months from now. This is a dedication, a lifelong dedication to be on a journey to serving others at the highest level possible so you experience the fun and fulfillment that you're looking for in your career. Today we're going to talk about how to look at some objective analysis of the opportunities you might be motivated to pursue from reflection of a Henry Schein Practice Analysis. Whether you've had one done in the past or you've never had the opportunity to have a Henry Schein Practice Analysis, I was fortunate to contribute to the development of this tool that they have. And for less than $250 a year, you're going to be able to objectively see where your practice is performing, how it's performing. You're going to objectively be able to see opportunities you're going to discover and maybe commit to. In addition, you get the best fee analysis in the industry. We'll take a look at that in a minute. Also, you can set up a 1-hour conference with myself or one of my team members and your Henry Schein field sales consultant to review it. We're going to talk about the 5 success strategies that generate predictable growth. We're going to learn how to calculate the current capacity for patients in your practice and learn the management processes that will bring you and your team into alignment in support of your vision based on your mission. And if the team doesn't understand your vision and mission, how can they help you? And last, discover how your practice results ultimately drive your personal goals, not just yours, doctor, but also your employees as well. When we look at the Henry Schein Practice Analysis, it looks at 3 things. Number 1 is a historical performance review. Number 2 is the fee schedule analysis. And number 3 are innovations in dentistry. I like this page in the report. It's called the Hygiene Department page. And if you see up here, it says total active patient count, 1,711. Now this number comes from your software, and it's the patients that you haven't taken out of the software that have been in the last 24 months. And we use a 24-month period because that's what the industry standard is, especially in practice valuation and practice brokers that are selling it. They always determine an active patient as somebody who's walked in the door over the last 24 months. At Strain, we define an active patient as an appointed patient. So it's a little different look, but we are looking forward. When you look forward, imagine driving in your car. How big is that windshield? You need to have a clear view of what's coming up ahead of you. Because when you're just looking at things historically, that's just a rearview mirror. That's just a little tiny perspective, and you can't change the past. But in this practice, they have 1,711 patients, and they only have 1,064 who made it into hygiene in the last 6 months. That's pretty amazing that there's almost 38% of the patients that they've seen that never made it into continuing care. And while I can understand that for some practices, maybe they just have a high new patient flow, or maybe it's they're snowbirds that come into your practice. I'm not sure. I had a consultation yesterday with a practice down in Florida that experienced that. For most practices, I'd see more like 90% participation in continuing care for the general dentist and the pediatric practices. Obviously, the specialists aren't going to be getting this report. This is geared more towards the GP and the pediatric. This doctor felt he should have had 20% of his patients in perio maintenance. Yet out of 1,700, there were only 23. It's just slightly better than 1% of the total patient base, and 10.8% of the continuing care pool. That's a defect in the new patient exam or the periodic exam or in the application of your treatment planning, financial arrangements, scheduling, and confirmation policies in your practice. Something to take a look at. When you look at the fee opportunity in this practice as an example, if you assess that you felt your fees should be at the 60th percentile in your market, this practice only had their fees at the 56th percentile. It would have given them a bump by $53,594 annually based on applying the same procedures they performed in the previous 12 months reviewed with the 60th percentile fees. Again, very important information for you. And you can see here on the fee opportunity, as we look at this page, the far right talks about the revenue potential based on the second column from right, the quantity per year of all of the procedures that have been done over there on the far left, the code. And it objectively looks at your practice and allows you to see how a fee schedule change could impact your profitability. As we go on down, the fee analysis summary plots out, in this case, in red, the fees that are being charged, and you can see where your fees are relative to the market. And that market is your zip code and the neighboring zip codes for you to look at. Last is looking at innovations, CAD/CAM technology, the E4D. In this case, this doctor did 243 crowns when they applied the savings of the cost of a crown versus the cost of the post for the CAD/CAM technology. There was quite a bit of savings. It's more important than just the product cost per lab. The amount of time that is saved, especially in states where assistants can't place fillings and they use CAD/CAM technology for inlays and onlays or crowns. It's such a tremendous boost to productivity for the general dentist to be able to be there for the prep and to rely on their able-bodied team to do the rest. So phenomenal opportunity there. And then you can also look at your top 25 report. In this case, the crowns were the biggest revenue producing items, and it allowed them to see what was next, pro fees, and you can go right on down and see what the active patient value. Based on the total patients in this practice, the revenue was at $568 per year. For strain clients, it's north of $1,000 a year. Not because we ever tell our clients how to produce dentistry. We develop the systems and strategies for them to perfect the delivery based on their philosophy. And that's what I want you to learn from today's presentation. So contact your Henry Schein Field Sales Consultant and have a Henry Schein Practice Analysis prepared for your practice, and contact Stephanie at strain.com to schedule a 1-hour teleconference with that field sales consultant and the strain certified consultant. And I think the investment cost to have a Henry Schein Practice Analysis done today is $239 for each report. And if you have that done annually, I just can't imagine how anybody in the history of benefiting from that report has ever not been able to recover $239 in revenue. Certainly, I would expect it to be 100-fold. That moving forward, I want to talk about the business of dentistry fundamentals. You know, the fact is you got to strive to quality of care with profitability in order to thrive and not just survive. You know, the old days are gone when we can just hang out a shingle and watch the overhead run out and think the revenue is going to come to offset it. It just doesn't happen. And there's quite a chasm separating the general dentist who's privately owned today from the growth in the group practice arena. All over the country, we're talking to doctors who have been approached or are gathering other practices in their group. They've been approached by groups or are building groups because they want to continue to orchestrate the delivery of a standard of care they're committed to. The single most important factor that creates stress in a practice is failing to achieve and maximize its profitability and practice value. Positive cash flow equals peace of mind. Savings in the business account are required. Let me give you a couple of thoughts to consider. The amount of working capital dollars you need to have saved should be equal to double your monthly payroll. And that includes the doctor's payroll. So if the doctor's payroll and the staff's payroll is $50,000 a month, you need $100,000 saved. That's just in saving as a rainy day fund. If it's 100, you need 200 saved. If you're spending $250,000 a month in wages, you need $500,000 saved. You need working capital reserves in addition to having an amount in your general checking account equal to 50% of your monthly disbursements. Now, personally, if you listen to people like Susie Orman or others, they're going to say in your personal budget, ladies and gentlemen, you need at least 8 months of your personal budget in a savings account outside of credit card balances and what's in your IRA or your 401k. But taking a look at the 5 strategies that I think about at all times, whether I'm talking to a sole practitioner, which is about 80% of our clients, or if I'm talking to people with 10 or 20 or 30 dentists on board. Yesterday I had a conversation with a client in Buffalo. They have 19 dentists. So take this multiple here. We want to achieve a scheduled patient base of 1,500 patients per dentist. So if I have 20 dentists on my team, I need 30,000 patients scheduled. If I have 5 dentists, I need 7,500. If I'm going to create predictable patient flow to then feed my doctors with ongoing completion of the pending treatment that they've diagnosed, I need those patients coming in on a regular basis, every 6 months or every 90 days, depending on your non-surgical perio program. Which leads me into step 2, strategy 2. You got to make sure that if you believe, based on your clinical philosophy and the survey of your practice, that 20, 30, 40% of your patients should be in your perio program, then that's what needs to be there. And if there's a defect, we've got to figure out what the problem is. Is it a lack of clarity, lack of training, lack of leadership, lack of accountability? You know, so these are things we have to look at. Same thing with the completion of the treatment plans that you've prescribed. And as we grow in step strategy 1 and 2, we can, over time, get rid of the unqualified patients, people who miss their appointments, they're late all the time, or they don't pay their bills. We're going to have people who move away, pass away, and write bad checks, and it's okay to think about moving on from them. So that's all part of the process, and it's never going to go away. As I speak with staff members that I get a chance to talk to, and they've worked in dentistry 10, 20, 30, 40 years, I asked them, was there ever a year where you didn't have a missed appointment issue? No. Did we ever have a year where the economy wasn't challenging for the patients they serve? No. I mean, it's always constant. But having protocols to follow will allow you to be able to navigate these challenges effectively. So over time, when strategy 1 is achieved, strategy 2 is achieved, and you've eliminated the patients who just don't want to be as committed to you as you want to be to them, you can start moving out of network, increasing your collection rate, reducing the amount of copayments that you finance, because you've got in your patient pool patients of record who want to accept your treatment plan, commit to consistent continuing care appointments, and pay their bill. Last, they'll hopefully refer their family and friends. And if all of that's working at a pace that your doctor can't keep up with, and you've got more than 1,500 patients want to come in the door, the treatment plan is being adequately presented and accepted. Our patients are making and keeping their appointments and paying their bill, and our collection rate is right where we want. You can think about franchising the model, and that means bring on an associate. And there's a lot of opportunities that can avail itself to the sole practitioner when they realize that the demand for their time is greater than supply. So let's look at ways to grow your production, cash flow, and profitability. How do we increase production? We just increase the number of scheduled patients, increase the providers, increase the number of visits per year in the practice, or we increase the revenue per patient visit. That can be done with new treatment planning philosophies, could be from hygiene to restorative to Invisalign or whatever product you want, or whatever treatment plan you want to add to your service mix, and possibly fee schedule management. Now, I know some of you, when I was looking at the fee schedule analysis earlier, were saying, well, we can raise our fees, but that doesn't mean the insurance companies are going to pay them. Granted. But ultimately, if you have more cash patients than you can see, that gives you the leverage to move out of network, and you want to pay attention to the fee reimbursement rates so you understand what market response is to the value you bring. That's an economics class. The way we increase profitability is to do the above and increase our collections and manage our overhead, which I'll get to in a few minutes. So I'm going to look at example 1 and 2 to talk about components of profitability. Let's look at the profitability equation. First line is number of annual patient visits, 5,000 in example 1 versus 6,000 in example 2. Multiply that times the average production per visit. In example 1, they were averaging $300 a year per visit. In example 2, 400. Something was different there. And look at the gross revenue. From 1.5 to 2.4 million, it all adds up. Simple strategies. That's an awareness of the team. That's clarity on the vision, clarity on the strategies, which gets reduced into writing, called your written operating policies. Moving through your management processes, which we'll talk later about, of training, leading, monitoring, and coaching. Look at our collection rate, going from 80 to 90%, and there's our collections. We collected 80% of $1.5 million in example 1, and we collected 1.2 million. In example 2, we collected 90%. Why? Because of some of the success strategies that were being applied. 2,160,000 minus the overhead equals profitability. And that's the kind of profitability that is reflective of a vision achieved, a mission delivered, and patients and team members giving owners their endorsement. That doesn't mean, doctor, you get to spend it all. Your organization's got to remain relevant. You're going to be investing in technology and marketing and social media campaigns, all the things that keep you number one in the minds of your patients as the competition comes and the competition goes. So, if patients aren't in continuing care or part of that strategy number 1, they're not active, in my opinion. My definition of an active patient is a patient of record with a scheduled hygiene appointment. They won't complete treatment plans. They're transitioning into clinical crises if they're not in continuing care. They're just out of care. And look at this perio charting. This is what I see all over the country. 4s. They turn red here. This is actually a dentist chart. But all of the perio charting that are on the computer, they all default to a color red when they're at 4 millimeters measured in pocket depth. But the problems you see with this is there's no documentation of gingival margin or clinical attachment loss, and there's certainly no bleeding on probing. So it's no wonder why you can't move your patients into awareness of the conditions they have because they're not being documented. I'm sure they're not being illuminated with the use of your intraoral camera up on the screen so that the patient can move into co-diagnosis and own their health. When that happens, and they know how much you want to take care of them as if they're family, they're going to commit. Every practice has a maximum number of patients it can manage. It's calculated by determining the patient capacity in your hygiene department. Last week I was lecturing in Florida and Georgia, and a little bit in Massachusetts, and then up in New Hampshire. And as I went around the room, I just asked how many days of hygiene do you have? And they all gave me their number of days. And I said, multiply that times about 175 patients per day of the week. Meaning if you had 10 days a week, you'd probably have 1,750 patients in hygiene. I said, compare that to your estimate of the number of patients you have in your practice. We're missing the opportunities. So what staffing model are you considering? One doctor and one hygienist? That used to be the model in the 70s and the 80s. It's not sufficient enough. Those 600 patients don't generate enough restorative dentistry needing to be done annually to keep your doctor busy. So economically, we're going to be challenged. We've grown over the last 20 years to one doctor, two hygienists, and now we're seeing it becoming more prevalent in the states that will allow it, which is almost every one, to grow to one doctor and three hygienists. Of course, I know what you're thinking is, how am I going to do all the exams? Well, you're not going to have to do the exams when you put in place your continuing care policy that clearly defines when a patient goes through scaling and root planing, your initial therapy, and into perio maintenance. So if one of your hygienists is causing you to see more than 4 exams a day, you don't have very many of your patients in perio maintenance. That's something we can talk about during our consult period. I want to walk you through a strain practice analysis, and each one of you can have your practice's strain practice analysis performed by calling Stephanie. We're going to look at patient-based capacity, continuing care policy, reappointment policy. This is all about discovering the practice within your practice. Here's a strain survey. If you get a hold of Stephanie, she'll forward you one. Complete it, get it back to her, and set up an appointment with either me or one of my team members. I have the most amazing team in dentistry, all the strain consultants. In this case, this doctor's got number of patients of record, 1,800. Wow. 4 treatment rooms. Well, we've already got too many patients for 4 treatment rooms. Doc's working 4 days a week, and the hygienist is working 4 days a week, so that hygienist is seeing 32 patients a week. Very typical, 60-minute appointments. You start rushing any faster than that, patient education is going to diminish. It's not the quality of the work the hygienist does. They just won't have the time to talk to the patient. In the next 6 months, the number of patients with a scheduled hygiene visits, 150 out of 1,800. That's pretty low because 1,650 people wouldn't be scheduled. 5% are in perio. That's a pretty low number as well. They're owed $86,000. Well, they produced $38,000 last month, so they're not asking for copayments. They're probably intimidated, not knowing how the patient's going to respond. They're insurance dependent because their year-to-date production was $424,000 for the year last year, and they only collected $381,000. When we look at the graph, the first one's called the continuing care report. I wrote this report 30 years ago. You can see they've got 150 people scheduled out of 1,800. Rule number 1, no one leaves your practice without the next continuing care appointment being scheduled. So you want to check that out for your practice. My team knows how to pull that information out of your software. Rule number 2, people follow the doctor's treatment planning philosophy. And when you look at only 37 of the 1,800 are in their perio maintenance program, well, that's a clue. 581 openings exist in the next 6 months. How's that doctor going to commit to adding hygiene days? Not right now. Start reappointing. Because on top of that, there's 1,069 patients who just can't even fit into hygiene once we solve the problem with the 581 openings that we have. Hence, because of low patient flow, you can see low production down there on the left, 400,000. Get all 1,800 patients flowing, and my gosh, we're going to do $1.8 million. But we've got to break through your ceiling, doctor. We call it the law of the lid. How high do you want us to be in your practice? How high is the ceiling? As a result of not having a collaborative relationship with the patients, we're not collecting all of our copayments. We're not collecting all the money. We're probably a network. We are victims of the lack of strategy. And as you can see here, the accounts receivable balance is too large. I mean, the number of statements you should be sending out monthly is 0. You should only be owed that amount of money due from insurance is billed out within the last 2 to 3 weeks. And let me further illustrate that all pro-fee schedule leads to nothing but frustration. So part of discovering the practice within your practice is not just increasing patient visits from the existing patient base, but increasing the revenue per patient visit. Because an all pro-fee schedule like this, whether you have 1, 2, or 3 hygienists, is going to be low production. And look at what happens in the doctor's schedule on the far right when they get invaded with all of these exams. Cranky, cranky, cranky. My goodness, I wouldn't want to be this dentist. Every 30 minutes, he loses 20, 30 minutes in exams. And I can tell you that these periodic exams may take 10 to 15 minutes because the data is not ready for the doctor when they walk in for the periodic exam for the same reason that we're all pro-family practice, lack of planning. Success happens in the planning phase, and that's part of your process, which we'll talk about with the huddles and the staff meetings and the trainings. This is a much healthier practice. 1,200 patients of record, as you can see on the upper right. 924 scheduled with 2 full-time hygienists, a third of the patients in perio, a low accounts receivable balance. December's revenue was $74,000. Year to date, though, we did $1,267,000 in production and collected $1,241,000. They may have taken some time off over the holidays. But look at that. Isn't it much more comforting to know we have a full schedule in the next 6 months? Isn't it more comforting to know that the people that have periodontal disease are actively engaged with your hygienists to provide the maintenance necessary to improve their quality of life? And there are some openings because people just don't always reappoint, but almost everybody's in continuing care, resulting in a production level that you can produce, you can collect, and you're managing effectively, which is going to drive profitability. So when we talk about building the continuing care component, we're looking at block scheduling in your hygiene department first. See, we're going to block the schedule out 8 months in advance, not just a month in advance with the doctor. And we're going to end up blocking out when the doctor will need to be doing exams on the far right. Now, how this is done when we put together our continuing care policy is, doctor, we're going to meet with you and assess what are your clinical thresholds that dictate that someone is no longer periodontally healthy. Could be 5 millimeters or bone loss, whatever the records say. It's your philosophy, not mine. We'll then conduct a survey. For a period of 1 month, we're going to determine how many people you saw entirely in the practice and how many people met that criteria. And in 8 to 18 months from now, as you apply the activities or tactics outlined in your policy, your patients are going to learn about the status of their health. They're going to be given a chance to choose to be on a path of wellness or one that isn't leading to wellness. And over time, you're going to fill up the schedule. And it's going to populate, and it's going to be convenient, and you don't need a lot of patients to get there. I mean, when you think about it, if all I have is 1 child prophy a day for 200 days a year, that's 100 kids to fill up 1 hygienist, 1 appointment per day. If I have 3 perio maintenances every day, 200 days a year, that's 600 of those procedures. They come 4 times a year. I only need 150 people. And if I have 3 prophies a day left over, that's 600 of those appointments here. They come twice a year, 300. I only need 550 patients, 450 of whom are adults to fill in that schedule. And think about the revenue there. Scaling and replanning, 2 of those, that's what's that, $500? 3 perio maintenances, another 500, there's 1,000. 3 prophies, there's 300, 1,300. A child prophy with fluorides, another 100, there's 1,400. If you're offering antimicrobial agents, radiographs, and adult fluoride, this revenue should easily peak out at $1,800 to $2,000 a day. And if that's blowing your mind right now, well, call me. So if you have 2 or 3 hygienists, the way you want to book this per doctor is with identical sequences. In column 2, and if you have a third underneath that doctor, you see identical sequences allowing you to congregate exams on the far right. Now, if you're a multiple doctor office, our clients develop what we call care teams. And a care team is 1 doctor with the 2 to 3 hygienists that are going to be managing the patient base that thinks that those hygienists and that doctor are theirs. And that's a care team versus a true group practice, which in reality I've only seen a couple. And I've been doing this 30 years. So something for you to consider that we can chat about as well. An ineffective model, less than 2 full-time hygienists per doctor, producing less than $800,000 a year. More effectively, getting that production up to $1.4 million, building it when you can't keep up with all the patients in the first doctor and 2 hygienist model, it spills over to needing a second doctor, and we grow the practice, and eventually maybe we'll have a new building and expand accordingly, and the team at Henry Schein can certainly help you with that. So what limits your production, your profitability? Do you have enough patients? Let's take a look. Maybe you don't have enough hygienists to take care of them all. Do you have enough treatment rooms? I was talking with some clients about that last night in Georgia. It's very, very difficult to be able to manage a sizable patient base with just 2 or 3 treatment rooms, so we can chat about that. Maybe we don't have enough dentists. Maybe there isn't a clear vision. Is that road ahead of you clear, or is it foggy? Let's make sure it makes sense for patients, for your team, and for you. Do we have written policies that support your philosophy? Is there a management system to guide us? Is everyone committed to becoming the leader they need to be and they can be? What's your plan? With the strain management system, I want to talk to you a little bit about management processes. Our management system has been used by thousands of practices, from startup to, well, the most valued dental group in the world uses the strain management system as its engine to lead the team, to understand its vision and mission, providing alignment, getting endorsement from their team. It provides proven step-by-step methods and processes and aims at establishing smooth functioning standard practices. It includes information organizing the practice specifically in relation to identifying your goals and objectives, establishing benchmarks and monitoring processes, setting and implementing written policies, being guided by your system. I believe a quality dental team is committed to educating patients on the value of preventive dentistry. Your patients want that. They encourage honest and frequent feedback from patients. We hopefully respond swiftly and effectively to all patient complaints tirelessly and with full concentration, and that they review completed treatment with every patient after every appointment to support the quality work the doctor's done and reinforce the need to complete pending treatment, and they understand all the policies in the practice so everybody knows what is expected of them at all times and in every situation. But doctor, if we don't have written operating policies, the education is not going to happen through osmosis. If we're going to end up creating quality patients that commit to consistent continuing care, accept your treatment plans, agree to your FAs, keep their appointments and refer their family and friends and reappoint for the next visit, because they value your philosophy of preventive care, that you're committed to taking care of them as if they're members of your family. I was just talking a little bit earlier today to a client of ours in Laredo, and I said, your commitment's clear. You want your patients to know they're going to be taken care of as if they're the family members of the owner. Visualize this protocol of patient flow. It starts off at the top, patients up here. They could be unappointed over on the right. They're new or they're appointed. They're going to come in for a new appointment, new and existing. There's going to be an update to the treatment plan. Okay, then you're going through the examination diagnosis. Then you make financial arrangements. Then you schedule it. Then you confirm it. Then you deliver the treatment, collect the copay, reappoint the patient, and bill and collect the insurance. If you're a network, this is the vision of the protocol of patient flow. In order to guide your team to support that, we need a management system. The first part of the management system I'm not going to cover on today because we don't have time is the management structure. That's about reducing your vision into your org chart and into your patient pool, your employee handbook, and your operating policies. Then, of course, we have our management processes. Now I'm ready to hire people, bring them on board, train them, coach them, being there when they fail so that through the failures they can succeed. And we have feedback tools that guide us along the way. Strategy has got to be everyone's everyday job. You know, it's simple. Everyone is responsible. You know, we talk about creating an aligned organization and an alive organization. And in the acronym ALIVE, the last two letters are V for voice. Everybody has a voice in the organization. And E stands for equal. We all have an equal responsibility to implement the strategies which are housed in the policies. And that's only going to happen when everybody's fit for the position, which occurs through participating in the management processes. Huddles, fewer than 20% of practices have them. And of the ones that do, 90% of them not effective. Weekly staff meetings, fewer than 5% of practices have them. And of the ones that do, fewer than 20% of them follow an agenda. Let's customize one for you. Monthly department facilitators. What are these meetings? These are about the department facilitators for each department in your practice, hygiene assistants and administrators, who understand all your policies and beyond training, can be there to coach everyone throughout the day, and they're nurturing people who love watching others grow. You got to have training. You know, at Strain, we had training yesterday. Every Monday, our coaches have training for an hour. On a monthly basis, our consultants have training. On top of that, our consultants are trained for 3 years by our director of training, Mr. Bird. And then they're overseen by our director of consulting, Dr. Lickman, and our director of operations, Vera Powell, to make sure we're all capable of supporting our promise, We have annual performance appraisals as well. So when we're looking at your practice and what you need to think about as processes, you've got to develop a system that allows people to work together in an orchestrated format. So whatever your innovations are, new technology. Later this month, I'll be lecturing in Toronto, Canada. If any of you are there for the American Academy of Cosmetic Dentistry meeting, I'd love to see you because I'll be lecturing that Friday. So these are all concepts that allow us to guide the team to understand where we are, where you want to be, and what we need to do to be committed to making the future better than the past, leading everyone to fun, fulfillment, and financial reward. So a management process is a systematic approach to making the organization's workflow more effective. It all starts in the preparation phase. We had a huddle this morning. It was 20 minutes. Makes it more efficient and more capable of adapting to the ever-changing environment. Things happen. Things get in the way. And it's your emotional intelligence that's going to allow you to remain positive and loving and nurturing along the way. It's your confidence, too, that the owner has got a clear vision for you. It's an activity or set of activities that will accomplish specific organizational goals and objectives. Maybe we want to grow the number of patients scheduled in hygiene from 1,000 to 2,000 by the end of the year. Ambitious, but it's been done before. Question is, what do you want? And it's a sequence of interdependent and linked procedures that get results through others by coordinating their efforts. I mean, you can hide out in your practice. Assistants can be over in this corner. Hygienists can be in their operatories or treatment rooms, not even making contact with anybody. And the administrators, they get focused on supporting the patient flow up front, and the doctor hides in their private office studying Field and Stream or Golf Digest. It's not where action is. That's not a process of interdependent and linked people and procedures that get results. But when it happens, we're going to have a financial budgeting model that we're proud about. Proud because we can compete in our market against anybody that comes in it. Knowing that our practice has a maximum number of patients we can manage, it's equal to the number of people we can fit in our hygiene department, and we're there, we're moving out of network, and people are still saying yes, and this is a professional team. So as we talk about developing a clear picture of the year ahead, then commit to it as if your life depended on it. Do you know how Navy SEALs train? We did a whole study on Navy SEALs. They train as if their life depends on it. And it may not be yours, but it could be your patient's. So if we're going to talk about revenue, we need to look at setting realistic production goals for your doctor. And the way we do that is we compute the average daily production goal in each of the last 12 months. We'll take the gross production divided by the day's work that month, or hours, and come up with an average. And we'll set the daily production goal at the highest average daily goal attained in the last 12 months. If you've done it once, you can do it again. We're going to adjust the goal whenever you increase their fees. You increase your fees by 5%, the goal's got to go up. When new technology or treatment planning philosophy increases the production to a new level for 3 consecutive months, you guys are getting better. Then how do we do it for hygiene? As I indicated before, have the doctor and hygienist estimate the percentage of patients who are periodontally healthy versus patients need to be in your periodontal maintenance program. And then determine the patient appointment capacity for your hygiene department and assign the number of adult prophy, scaling, root planing, perio maintenance every day, correspondingly fluoride, correspondingly radiographs, correspondingly Arrestin or the use of a laser for laser bacterial reduction. Apply whatever your fees are, and there's going to be our production level for hygiene, and apply those dollar amounts. And of course, our collection percentage, once we've established production, is what percentage are we going to collect? Your accounts receivable balance should hopefully be only those balances due from insurance companies owing you money from claims submitted during the period of time you expect to collect from them. Could be 2 weeks, could be the next day, could be a month, or could be 2 months. You don't want to be owed anything from patients. When somebody walks out of your practice not reappointing or owing you money, nothing good has happened. Now I'm going to waste admin time, and I've given them another reason to cancel appointments in the future. We don't want to have that happen. So now I've got production goals set. I've got a collection percentage. I've got to look at my variable expenses. My dental supplies are going to be in the 6 to 8% range. My lab bills. And all of this is measured against production. And if you want to have a discussion about that, I'm glad to have it with you. I've prepared over probably 5,000 sets of financial statements in my accounting career from 78 to 92, and I've probably reviewed another 30, 40,000 sets. I was looking at some this morning for a client of mine in South Carolina. Every one of your percentage estimates is going to be a little different because your revenue is usually so different. You might have a different treatment planning mix that you want to offer. You might have a different fee schedule. You might have a different philosophy on your soft tissue management program. You might only have room for one hygienist when you probably need 2 or 3. These are all things that are going to impact the denominator. And then once we look at the expenses, that's the numerator. Then, of course, we know what they stand as a percentage of production. And again, we look at it as a percentage of production because it's the same if you're out of network or in network. You'll incur these expenses and take a look at them. But ultimately, we have to look at what's the net. And when we look at, we've got the production collections, we got the overhead. I want to establish your accounts payable and payroll processes. Semi-monthly payroll is best because it allows you to capture all the wages within the month, so you can always look at each calendar month accurately from an overhead standpoint. Payables, if the payables are in by the 31st, out by the 7th. If they're in by the 15th, out by the 22nd. If you have the accounting department so you can do weekly payable runs, great. But at the very least, you'll have payroll on the 1st, payables on the 7th, payroll on the 15th, payables on the 22nd, and you'll be matching the expenses against the revenue and the collections earned. So when you look at ways to increase profitability, what category do you think you can most easily influence to increase profitability? Expenses or revenue management? And if you said the first one, you didn't get it. It's revenue management. Your expenses are virtually fixed. Ultimately, we have to figure out how much money is needed to run our business. We got to pay for the overhead. I got to pay my rent. I got to pay my accounting, and don't forget your consulting. But the most expensive investment you have on your team is your team. And your team needs to not only be paid, but they need to be invested in, and that's time. And if you think that you're going to squeeze every hour out of them that you pay them for to just be productive and never improve their skills to improve the performance, don't expect that the average revenue per patient visit to ever move. It's not an enduring strategy. Debt service, we got to fund it. Working capital reserves, we have to fund it. Taxes, we look at it, we have a tool called a life planning questionnaire for our owners. We need to know what their budgets are about. What's your lifestyle, retirement, investments, education, and income and exit protection products, all the insurances. This is really where we begin. Stephen Covey said in his book, The 7 Habits of Highly Effective People, one of the habits is to begin with the end in mind. Doctor, how old are you? Man, I just turned 60, you guys. March this year, I was 60. I partied every day of the month with my wife and my team. We had a great time. We celebrated. Well, now I'm on the back half. I got another 60 years to live, and I'm looking forward to that. But I have overhead to fund. The kids are gone. They're all out of the household. I got grandkids coming in this weekend to hang with me. They're 1 and 4. But, life goes on. I'm not ready to retire. I love being on the phone with you. I love being where I'm going to be this week in person. I love working with the team that I get to work with. It's energizing to be around people who love our vision and mission and want to be a part of something big. And then I've got to make sure as business dad, that's my title. I'm business dad. I'm really not even the CEO at Strain. Olivia Strain is. I'm in charge of business development. I am involved with group practice, director of group practice activities, and I support all the needs of our consulting team with all the recommendations I can give them. But we've got to begin with what you want out of this, doctor, and then make an offer that your team finds unbeatable. So there's a recipe for success. I believe there's a recipe that every business should follow. R stands for repetition. Repetition is the mother of skill. Education, just can't get enough of it. Consistency. Let's not go changing strategies. Don't be one of these guys that goes to a CE course and comes back with another new crazy idea. You don't introduce new strategy, any more frequently than once every 6 months, and implement passionately. Praise publicly, redirect privately, and evaluate. Is the strategy working? That's what's critical here. And I want to say this with respect to evaluate. My employees are not responsible for the attainment of my goals. Not responsible at all for the attainment of my goals. They are responsible for implementing the strategy that I've housed within my policies. But whether or not those strategies are going to allow us to get to goal is up to me, and that's my job as your consultant. So schedule that 1-hour free planning session with a Strain team member. You just look them up on our website at strain.com. Go to our Facebook page and see what other practices are doing with our consultants to enjoy being in the business of serving others through dentistry. Schedule a complimentary 1-hour planning session with a certified strain consultant now. Call Stephanie at 916-836-3406. That's her private line, and get a hold of her and say, Steph, I want to call with one of you folks. I want to have a strain practice analysis done. Give me a strain survey. And if you don't know your Henry Schein field sales consultant, she'll find out who it is in your area so you can get the Henry Schein Practice Analysis done. Best $239 you're going to spend in your life. And let's put a plan together so the second half of 2016 and beyond can be better than everything we've experienced to date. So I believe achieving your goals is 20% knowing our business skills that we've talked about today, and 80% knowing your people skills. There's Livy, my wonderful partner and wife. One without the others is missed opportunities. And as we say, I'm happy because I've conquered myself and not the world, and I'm happy because I have loved the world and not myself. And when you're really committed to being a 360-degree leader at every point of contact that you have to delight someone or disappoint them, you're going to get so much for loving the world. Please get connected with us in our social media. Come to us at Strain Consulting on our Facebook page, our YouTube channel, our Twitter account. Stephanie does such a great job with that, and I'm grateful for the time we got to spend together. But always remember what Martin Luther King said, I have a dream. When we dream alone, it's only a dream. But when many dreams come together, it's the beginning of a new reality. I'm grateful for each one of you today. I want you to, tonight before you go to sleep and you're sitting there, lying there in bed, think about the 3 people and the 3 things that you're most grateful for. It'll relax you. It'll prepare you to approach the next day with renewed vigor and a commitment to being the leader that you can become. Have a wonderful week ahead. I look forward to the next time we're together. And if you have any questions, I look forward to following up with you by contacting Stephanie at strain.com. Everyone have a wonderful day, and I'll talk to you soon.